Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to another Hobby Night episode. This week, I got my hands on an early copy of Kill Team, so I'm going to be painting up a Death Korps of Krieg Guardsman. That's right, I got an early copy of Kill Team, and instead of painting up some of the commandos today, because that is for Patreon, and you'll probably see some of them on Instagram and stuff later on as well, I figured we would instead go to the lovely vacation spot that is the Death Planet of Krieg and paint up some Death Korps of Krieg models. And
why? Is it because I already claimed the sergeant?
It is because you already claimed the sergeant. But that's okay, there's plenty of other cool models for us to pick out, and I have a really cool color scheme that I'm going to be basing this off of that the Chaos Cultist already has painted up, and I'm loving it. It's got a great winter vibe to it, which is totally opposite of the desert theme that I did last week on my Mandalorian, so I'm really excited for this complete flip of color palette and challenge in painting this new model. Let's go ahead, pick out our model, find out which one I'm going to be painting up, and then actually get to painting this Death Korps of Krieg Guardsman.
I'm having a really hard time actually picking which one I want to paint because all of these sculpts are really cool. I've been debating between doing some of the more specialized characters versus doing some of the more just like standard dudes, because honestly, like even these guys that are just carrying the normal las gun and everything are really, really neat. But then you've also got like your neat guys like this guy where he's, you know, he's holding something or he's got a fancier backpack or whatever. There's just so many options that I'm actually having a hard time choosing. Thankfully though, the Chaos Cultist has already painted up one of the models, our Sergeant, and I now have a awesome color guide to base my painting scheme off of. So once I've figured out which one I'm gonna paint, we'll go ahead and jump straight into it.
Let's talk primers. For that, we're going to be starting with a classic Zenithal, first using a little bit of Mechanicus Standard Gray, and then doing a heavy Zenithal over top of that using Gray Seer. Because I'm going with a cool color palette for this particular model, I figured it would be a better option for my contrast paints to go with the Gray Seer over the Wraithbone. I'm going to be approaching this model in a little bit of a different direction than I normally do, which is why he's upside down on my painting handle right now. You see, I actually find getting in between a miniature's legs kind of difficult when they're upright, and while he has no paint on him, I figured why not flip him upside down and actually take care of his lower half right now, get that out of the way, and then flip him around and do all the fun stuff later. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. I'm going to start with his pants. For that, I'm going to be using a little bit of Gryph-charger Gray, which is this really lovely pale gray blue-green color tone, which is going to complement later with what I do on his jacket super well. And it makes this wintry scene that I'm trying to go for immediately apparent. I actually really like this color, even though I don't use it very often. It's just so gosh darn pale. It's hard to find places to use it, but for this, it's gonna work perfectly. Then we're gonna move on to the wraps that are around his legs as well. And for that, I'm going to be using a little bit of Skeleton Horde. This works as a really nice sort of light linen color and is going to complement perfectly with the pale color palette that I'm working with. Once those are done and the wraps are looking good, I'm going to move on to a slightly darker brown tone for his boots with a bit of Darkoath flesh. I really like this particular brown color because while it has a little bit of warmth and red to it, it still goes super well with blues, greens, and purples, so I tend to gravitate towards it for a lot of my paint schemes because I do like to use some of those colors, especially the greens and purples. But in this case, we're gonna go a little bit more heavy with the blue in this color scheme. Once the boots are done, which I'm really happy with how they're going out, I decided I wanted to have the soles of his boots be a little bit darker to help them blend with the groundwork that I'll be doing later, and just to give it a little bit of pop. So for that, I'm going to pull out a bit of black Templar and apply that to the soles of his boots. Then I'm gonna keep him upside down actually, because we're gonna move on to his jacket next, and I figure getting the underside of the coat will be easier this way. Let's go ahead and talk about one of my new favorite contrast colors, Akhelian green or alkaline green. I'm not actually 100% sure how it's pronounced, but the point is it is a gorgeous blue-green color tone that we've chosen to use as our core color for our Krieg models. And I actually think it works really well as a complement to the classic Krieg color scheme, while still being a little bit more saturated, a little bit more bold, which is totally my style. And if you've seen the channel, you know that I really like to work with contrast colors because they're bright and vivid. And this is exactly that, but still is kind of muted and works with this sort of wintry color palette that I'm wanting to do, and I absolutely adore it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start on the lower half and apply this color to the entire lower portion of the jacket. Once it is dry, we're going to go ahead and pull out a little bit of Leviadon blue and apply this to the inner portion of the jacket, because I really wanted to sort of do the thing that you classically see in real life, where jackets have sort of an inner color and then an outer color. I just think it adds a little bit of realism to the piece, and I really like the way that it turns out. So any of the folded over sections that might show the undercolor of the jacket, we're going to paint with the Leviadon blue, as well, of course, we're going to paint the actual underside of the jacket that you see between his legs. Once we have the entire lower portion fully done with the blue colors and the green color, we're going to flip him over and work on the top portion. Now I do want to call out that when I get to this section, I actually have to switch to a slightly smaller brush and go a little bit more slowly, because he actually has a few more recessed and hard to reach areas on his upper body when it comes to his jacket than anywhere else. In particular, the pits, the chest, and his back all have some sort of hard to reach areas. So I go slowly, take my time, because I really don't want to lose the Zenithal Prime that I've applied to my model. Once that upper portion is done with the green coloring, we're going to pull back out Leviadon blue and apply it to the collar and the rolled up sleeves on the model, just to continue that complementary color through and actually showing the interior of the jacket. I really, really love the way that this is looking, but we have a little bit more to work on the model, and next up, we're going to move on to the leathers.
I finished the blues on the peak coat, both the top and the bottom at this
It's a
point.
pea coat.
Oh, pea coat. I'm sorry. Whatever. I finished his coat. It's epic. I absolutely love it. This new, like the alkaline, or the what is it called? The
Alkaline green.
Alkaline green is so good. It's probably one of my new favorite colors for contrast. I have to find other ways to use this, because it is just a gorgeous color tone. And it's gonna work so well with the color scheme we have going for this. I'm super hyped. Let's get back to painting.
And for those leathers, we're going to go ahead and start with a little bit of Snakebite leather. I thought this color was a nice sort of bold, warm color tone that complemented actually super, super well with the green that we're using. The slight orange hue to it, I think, really brings out actually a little bit more of the blue out of the alkaline color. And I love it. So we're going to apply this to the majority of the leathers on the model. It's going to go on his belt, on all of his straps, and the majority of the leather bags on his backpack. Though you will notice we are leaving a few of those unpainted for right now, and that is because we're going to actually bring back a little bit of Darkoath flesh for those. I wanted to basically tie this color back in since I had used it previously on his boots. I like to have a little color blocking throughout my pieces, and so this is a way for me to add that back in. Once that's done, we're actually going to move on to a much paler leather color tone, and for that, I'm pulling out Apothecary White. I wanted this to feel very winter. We were going with a lot of blues, a lot of greens, and a lot of pale colors, and so Apothecary White I thought would be perfect on the actual leather portion of his gas mask. I thought it would give him a little bit of a ghostly feel and just play with the overall vibe that I'm going for, and it works perfectly. So I'm going to apply this to not only his face mask, but also his gloves. I thought that would sort of bring it all together, and that wraps up all the leathers. Now we just need to do a little bit of detail work, the guns of course, and then wash him. Hey guys, if you are enjoying this video, make sure to hit that like button and let me know about it down in the comments. If you haven't already and you're wanting more content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon for notifications. And then if you want even more hobby goodness, make sure to follow me on Instagram or Twitter at hobby_night. Now, let's go ahead and get back to the video. For his weapons and armor, I'm going to be sticking pretty simple and going with my classic Baslicanum gray method. I really like to use this as a non-metallic metal. It just happens to work really well with the contrast method that I like to paint in, and I think it really is an effective non-metallic metal look. So we're going to apply this in a single coating to all of the metal bits on the miniature. That includes his armor, as well as his lasgun and the grenade on his hip, as well as any small details that might be on his jacket that might need this color. I am going to only do, like I said, the single coating, but on the bayonet, I do go back over it with a second coating of gray just to deepen it a little bit to try to give it a look of a slightly different metal than the rest of the gun. We are going to be doing a little bit of detail work here next to even further differentiate and pop the gun out a little bit, but I think this little touch helps a little, and it takes no effort because it's just me going back over it with the same color a second time. I really like it. Let's go ahead and move on. We're down to the details. So for that, we're actually going to start with a bit of Iyanden yellow. I briefly off camera cleaned up all of the buttons on his jacket, as well as the Aquila that's on his helmet and the skull that is on the gun that I had painted over in gray with a little bit of gray Seer just to touch them back up. And now we're going to pull out Iyanden yellow and apply this to all those little details. I think this pops really well. You don't really notice it at a super distance, but when you're up close looking at it, it's this nice little just extra, effort that was put in that makes you go, oh, how nice. That looks like a real jacket now because he's got buttons and stuff on there. I think it turns out great. With that done, we're going to go ahead next and pull out a little bit of Black Templar and apply this to not only his gas mask, like the cord portion of it, but also to the clip that is in his gun so that he just have that stand out a little bit more, as well as touching up anything on his feet that I may have messed up when I flipped him over. Then we're going to move on to the final detail color, using a little bit of Blood Angel's red. I wanted to, of course, give him some red lenses on his gas mask. I just thought it would make his face stand out a little bit more, and I always really like to have a little pop of red on my model. And then to tie it in, I went ahead and put a little bit on the lasgun as well, just to indicate that, hey, this was made at Mars, and that's where he got it, and I really just like doing this. It's something that I almost always do on all of my models when they have weapons and everything, just because I don't know, maybe it's because I'm so into Nerf guns and they always do color tips on their stuff too, just to help identify them. I think it's just a weird holdover from that, but I really, really like it. Now he's basically done. We just need to apply a quick wash and then we can get him based. And the wash that we'll be applying to the model is going to be some Liquid Talent Nuln Oil. I don't use this color very often, mostly because I don't tend to work in that many cool color palettes, and I find that Reikland's, Agrath's, and now Seraphim Sepia tend to work a little bit better with the color palettes I tend to gravitate towards. But for this, because we went cooler and we used a lot more blues, I figured Nuln Oil was actually going to be the best option. Plus, this adds a little bit of grime and grit back into the piece, which I think is very appropriate for somebody who's supposed to be walking around in the trenches and everything. So it adds a little bit of the grim darkness back into the model, which I absolutely love. Now that it's dry, I'm going to go ahead and get him mounted onto a winter-themed base, and we'll take a look at the final results. And here he is. My very blue trench-dwelling guardsman. And honestly, I absolutely love the way that this model turned out. I don't actually work with blue color palettes or cool toned color palettes very often. I tend to gravitate, despite the fact that I use a lot of greens, towards warmer green tones. So actually going with a full cool toned color palette on this particular model was super fun. Also, the Akhelian green, I love. It's so not a green to me. It's a totally mislabeled color on GW's part because it's super blue. I mean, it's got a little bit of green in it, sure, because it's kind of a teal color, but really it reads to me as blue. And it works really well as the Krieg, as a way to get contrast colors, getting the Krieg color palette, basically. I actually think it works super, super well. I'm also especially happy with all of the accent colors that we ended up picking out, especially the Gryph-charger gray. That went really beautifully with the green tone or the blue tone of the jacket, and it makes me so happy. I definitely want to be using these colors on other things in the future. I don't know if I'm gonna do like a Space Marine army, but like Tau kind of interests me for this color scheme, with maybe a pop of orange in there or a really nice yellow just to give it a pop of color or something like that. But like, these kinds of things have got some, like, basically this color palette has gotten my ideas going in my head, and I'm excited for some other things, and I'm really hoping that you guys enjoyed watching me paint up this model. You'll probably see the rest of the squad finished up on my Instagram later, because we do plan on wanting to do some Kill Team stuff just for ourselves, and Chaos Cultist is going to be running the Krieg, and I'm going to be running the Commandos. So we'll be painting up both of those armies over time. You guys will probably see that on our social medias and stuff. Anyways, if you guys have enjoyed watching this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more. I want to give an extra special thank you to my patrons for allowing us to make content like this. You guys are awesome. I had so much fun. I hope you guys are enjoying everything that you're seeing over there on Patreon for the behind the scenes stuff. And I will see you guys next week for another news video, and we're going to be doing something with a bit of that terrain from the Kill Team box next week, so be looking forward to that as well. I've been Angela, you've been watching Hobby Night, and I'll see you later. Bye!